Hi, welcome Wednesday, another Heavy Metallurgy album club with my helpers, my team here. We got Jim from Eihwaz Recordings. We've got Kellen from Killing for Company. The links to both of these guys' activities are in the description. Please go visit their sites. And guys, thank you again. Another album club. How are you all doing this week?
Doing good. Happy to be back.
Right on. We took it a little bit of a turn this week and went back to the land of Norway. Hope you guys have been enjoying this record, or at least trying to get through it. Oh, and I do want to say we were like 4 away from 3,400 subs on the channel. Thank you everybody that has been subscribing and partaking in the comments. I have been super slow and busy to be responding, but I will get to it eventually. Thanks. I do appreciate it all. We all appreciate it. So yeah, there's that. 3,400. Slow but steady wins the race. But yes, we are here today to discuss this album right here, Again Shall Be by Hades, who later had to switch their name to Hades Almighty because of a lawsuit. I believe it was the New Jersey-based band Hades that sued them. I don't know for sure, a cease and desist type of thing, but I don't know that for sure. And I guess we should start off a little bit of history if you guys are ready. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, the band formed in Bergen, Norway in 1992 by former Old Funeral, Amputation, and Immortal guitarist Jorn Inge Tunsberg and ex-Dark drummer Remy Anderson. Their debut demo, Alone Walking, this guy right here, was recorded by Pitten at Grieghallen. The demo went on to underground acclaim and was later reissued on CD by Wounded Love in 1996. In 93, Tunsberg was convicted for burning down the old, don't know how to say Norwegian, all that great, Asane Church on Christmas Eve in 1992, along with Varg Vikernes. And he received a 2-year prison sentence for the act. Tunsberg claimed that he regrets nothing. This is paraphrasing. And the most important thing that happened was that the churches were burnt. So that's something I stand for then, now, and will stand for until I die. The band later signed to Full Moon Productions and recorded Again Shall Be at Grieghallen in June, July of 94. Hades have released 4 full-length albums, a couple splits. Their sound has evolved slightly as the years have passed. I guess we could show those two. We've got second album, Dawn of the Dying Sun, which appears to be a bit of a fan favorite. It's a great fucking album. And we've got Millennium Nocturne, and their last full length, The Pulse of Decay, which is a little bit weirder, but still it's got some good stuff on it. But there's an obvious change in their sound a bit. But that leads us to Again Shall Be. What did you guys think of this album? Jim, we'll start with you tonight. First impressions.
Well, the very first time I heard it was in 2012. I was over at your house, and we went through a stack of CDs, and you were like, "Okay, this was one of them. It was Hades Again Shall Be that I burned MP3s of, and I remember loving it. Then I listened to it a good bit back then. Never got a physical copy of it, so this was a good return to it. But yeah, it's Bathory worship at its best. It's very, very well done. I love their choice to be more mid-tempo and slow, where everybody else was going fast and doing blast beats at the time. They kind of took a corner like that and just stayed more in that Viking metal realm. There's a lot of Bathory worship out there, worldwide over the years, but Hades just did it better, I think, than most. I love the distorted bass. I love how the bass is really high up in the mix. The tortured vocals are great, and are just one of the highlights. Very tasteful keyboards. So yeah, I think this album stands the test of time. I do think their album after this is a little more unique. I think they kind of, push themselves a little more into trying to get their own identity. But there's that's no dig against this record. It's a great listen and a great turn back to 1994.
What about you, Kellen? What'd you think?
So I didn't go into this record completely blind. I know that you had talked about it a few times. And I gave it a listen, but I did not invest the same kind of time that I did this past week. And just going into the first track, I immediately gravitated towards this album because it does something that a lot of pagan black metal doesn't do for me, which is sometimes I think bands who play in this like a pagan style lean a little bit closer towards like folk elements. And it's pretty rare to find a band that is first a black metal band, then that has some sort of pagan influence sort of guiding them. And they got that perfectly. And you get in these sort of sung vocals, the first track leads in, and Jim mentioned this mid-paced. I was like, as much as I've got the Eternus sitting back here,
I say you got that back there, man, and yeah.
I was like, this could be something special. And it'll be difficult for me to go through this entire conversation tonight without talking about them. But by the time the second track came around, the vocals, the kind of riff structure and sort of flow to this album, I was all in, and I knew I was going to like it, but how much I enjoyed this past week, it's sitting in my, as soon as payday arrives, this is coming home with me. So
you're going to need the one after it too, The Dawn of a Dying Sun. It's really fucking good, really, really good.
Yeah, I know the chat's kind of, I know prior to this we're talking about both those records being really important, so we'll get there later.
Yeah. Well, for me, this band at this stage of their career is like the perfect mix of, I really love raw but mystical black metal, and I also love Viking era battery, and this is basically the breakdown of what Hades is on this album and the album after it in a lot of ways. It's got that, Viking battery plod crawl through, and the elements of folk on here, like Kellen said, they're not a folk band trying to be metal. It's very much a straight up black and Viking band adding folk elements, and it isn't necessarily instrumentation. It's like this triumphant push in the music, the riffs, they get very spacious, and due to the plotting, crawl, they're allowed to be very spacious, and they just have this triumphant, overwhelming feeling to them, which makes this album incredibly memorable and very catchy. And the songs, they just stick with you. And I love Yento, what's his name? Garmensland. He plays bass. His vocals are just scathing, just absolutely agonized sounding vocals. Like he's screaming from his big toes all the way up. It's just amazing. It sounds like someone lit him on fire and he's screaming, running down the street. Oh, TJ, what do you know? What do you know? Go to bed. But yeah, my first impression was, it seems like it was a fanzine or something I started seeing about him. And then Jeff Wagner reviewed it in Metal Maniacs, and his review kind of like, okay, I got to check this out, and I ended up picking up the copy and blown away. First impression, I was blown away, and it's stayed with me for a long time. But there's an obvious sound and style here, and I guess I wanted to discuss for a minute a bit about the Norway scene. Let's discuss what sets Norwegian bands apart in the black metal sphere when it comes to characteristics and what do they have to offer. What sets Norway apart from the rest of the black metal scene? What do you guys think about that? We'll start with you, Kellen.
So this is actually where I started with black metal. Back, around about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, when I was kind of getting into more extreme metal, and I was introduced to black metal. It was Norwegian second wave black metal. I did not get the first wave, and my first impression was it was much more of like a I don't want to say like meditative listen. It did not have the same, like coming from a death metal, it did not have the same kind of, I don't know, physicality to it. To your point about it having this sort of like mystical element, it was painting a very different or creating a very different world that was much more, concerned with nature, the outdoors, this kind of relationship between an individual and their surroundings. It wasn't just sort of instrumental aggression. It was trying to give you something else. And I think that's what, looking now and thinking about other waves of black metal and contributions from different countries, I think that's what really sets the Norwegian scene apart. There are exceptions to that, but I think what is distinctive is this relationship to the outdoor world. So I think that's kind of the first impression that I came away when looking to Norwegian black metal.
Right on. What about you, Jim?
Well, Norwegian black metal in general, like, that's where, the variety of different vibes, came from, your raw punkiness and mayhem, your like, staring yourself into oblivion, early Burzum, the Celtic frosty hammer smash of fucking, Dark Throne. And then you got, Emperor, and the insane orchestration by a couple of teenagers, that is still amazing to this day.
They were 16 when they wrote In the Night Side Eclipse.
And that's just unbelievable.
It's fucking insane.
It is. Those guys set the stone, set the stage, and and even as far as like you mentioned the criminality earlier, like all that sort of adds to the mystery. It's an old story. It's played out now, and what have you. But at the time, especially during the 90s, it was some pretty crazy stuff in it, and it was it was intriguing. Say what you will about all the activity that was going on. You've got people that didn't sing about evil, they lived it, for better or for worse. And bands like Hades, were able to grab onto that same sort of really, really dark atmosphere and make it their own. I don't think they were as original as those four bands that I just mentioned, but there is still a great vibe there, and it's delivered with sincerity. And cool. Even the drums, even though they're played really slow, like I like the cymbal hits are well timed and everything. You mentioned just there's a lot of power going on, and I even wrote down when I was listening to the title track. It's like this, like march. You know what I mean? Like that's the feel of the music. It's it could be accompanying an invading troop somewhere, or a long boat hitting the shore, and taking out some Normans or Saxons or whatever. It has that feel, it is a true Viking feel, and my only gripe is really with this record is I think Pagan Triumph is too long of a start to the record, before, it's just, it isn't a song. It kind of wants to be a song, but there's no real verses or choruses or anything. Just some cool Viking moments. I'm ready to get to the next track. Yeah. So maybe, but it isn't bad. It's still cool. Like maybe I would have placed that maybe in the middle or something. But other than that, that's really my only gripe, if you will, about the record. Is that, and because I like the choices that they made to be more of a plotting, kind of a tempo, because there was plenty of black metal going on at the time that really bashes in your skull, and I love that stuff, but if that was all day, every day, all the time black metal from this era, it would get old quickly, and so for them to kind of turn that on its head and really focus on the Viking aspect of it, and just the pure Norwegianness of the the sorcery and sound, has this album stick out for other releases in that same year, to me.
Yeah. Well, for me, what sets Norway apart? I think you guys touched on, the points for sure. for me, I keep saying mystical. I think, the second wave of Norwegian black metal capitalized on, the Bathory, the first 3 Bathory albums, and they added their own cultural flavor to it. You listen to, I mean, I'm not the world's best guitar player by any means, but I've always been told that, part of the Norwegian sound is when they play a chord, they play all 6 strings. They let all 6 strings ring out, which it gives it more of an ambience. It gives the riffs more of an ambience. And, that pagan spirit enters into the riffs. I know that sounds cheesy as fuck to say that, but, then the melodies as well. They weren't just straight melodies that were being played. They're atypical, very melodic, again, very pagan sounding, folk inspired harmonies, whether it was Ulver or Satyricon or whatever. They really leaned hard into their Viking ancestry on that. Not that Viking music is well documented, it's nearly lost to the ages, but their interpretation of this. And another thing I think that sets Norway apart was the production skills of Pitten. I mean, you listen to this album, it's his thumbprint. He's like the 5th member of the band, or the 2nd member of Burzum, or the 5th member of Mayhem and Emperor. I mean, he recorded all the greats, Ulver, all that stuff, and you listen to it, and what they all have in common: a very spacious sound. The drums, they sound like war drums. You could tell. I mean, if for those that don't know, Grieghallen is like a very classical concert hall, a very classic concert hall that, like Edvard Grieg's pieces were, played by orchestras, and Pitten would set up amps in the middle of this gigantic hall and record them, so they got all the room ambience and all the drum sounds were just enormous. And it's all over again, Shelby. I mean, those drums, they sound like they're war drums. I mean, that's this, and it's so clear, even though it's so spacious. Everything really has its own presence to it, and it really his ear for capturing this style of music is second to none. It's pretty incredible, and he had his hand on all the classics. You start looking down the list of things he's recorded. I mean, from Immortal to Enslaved to Mayhem, Burzum, Emperor. I mean, it's endless. All the ones, the favorites you love from this genre, you can look and see that he had a hand in it. So, I mean, that's part of it too. He helped create or nurture the sound, capture the sound. The bands, they just had a very special way of interpreting that Swedish raw Quorthon energy. And they did so with a very strong folk aesthetic, without being overly, lutes and flutes and all that other stuff. They came at it from a very metal mindset, which is very, very cool. And I think it sets them apart for sure. And also, I did want to talk to you guys. I mean, I wrote down a little thing here saying criminal activity marketing. I mean, part of reading this history was talking about, what's his name? Can't fucking remember his name. The main guy, the guitar player, burned down church with Varg Vikernes. That was a thing. And I will say, for me, reading all the shit in the news and the zines back in the day is very, what'd you say, Jim? You said the perfect word, and I can't remember it now. It was very alluring, or it made you want to.
Yeah, intriguing. Yeah.
Intriguing. Yeah. I mean, I heard about the criminal stuff and people dying before I heard the music, and it made me want to listen to the music. I mean, what do you guys think about? And there was also a thing back then too. There was this whole, all you got to do is burn down a church and somehow attach your band to it. And that's all the PR you need back in the day. And I mean, what do you guys think about this whole criminal activity type marketing? I mean, the media loves a shocking story. We'll start with you, Kellen. What do you think about the whole thing? How does it play into the music? Does it fit?
So for me, it was inescapable, in the sense that I think it was in broader circulation by the time I was getting into music. By the 2000s, it wasn't just like a group that was reading it in zines or tape trading. It was, if you want to know about black metal, well, here's the controversial, sensationalist history of black metal. I on the other hand, though, like, I have to admit, to Jim's point and your point about intrigue, I'd want to say this is like an important discussion for black metal, is like ideological sincerity. It was the first time, you always kind of knew to some degree, like, yeah, they're not really, criminals. They don't really believe in Satan or whatever. And whether that's true or not in a black metal band's case, right? Like their music at least made you believe it, right? Like I don't actually know if Hades is well versed in how Vikings played instruments, but I listened to this record and it conjures up that world, right?
Yep.
And I think that's, a point. Like I don't know if you're a historian and you tune into a album like this, or like, no, this is not what people in Norway were playing or what they were listening to, or this is not the chord progression they would use.
Right.
But the bands at least were able to conjure and create this world. And for the fans, I think when they presented it, they had a level of like, yeah, I believe what you're giving me. In terms of the sensationalism, like it's hard to talk about it, and it maybe got a lot of people in the door, but the more well-versed metalheads I talk to and the more experience you have with the genre, that dies out quickly. If you do not have great records to back your story, no one eventually is going to care. And I think at this point in time, the bands that have held up over the years are the ones that have the musical background, the records, the albums, the legacy that exists within their music that still holds currency for the fan base and the community. So that's where I come in on the controversy.
How about you, Jim? Well said. That was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, the intrigue of the activities, the burnings and murders and all that kind of stuff floats away. If the album sucks, you're not going to listen to it. Especially as the older you get more and more picky about your time and how you spend it, and you're not going to even listen to something that's even half-assed. You want something good, and you want something that's going to stick in your mind, and or take you on a journey, which a lot of good black metal does, and it's those albums that have stood the test of time. In terms of like, for me, like the intrigue actually came later. Like when all this stuff first started going on in the '90s, and the magazines were talking about it and stuff, and Metal Maniacs and everything, it was actually for me, it was a turnoff. I was just like, I don't need any of that, and I just kind of stayed in my death metal world, for a long time, and actually even mainstream metal, because I was in a mainstream metal band at the time, but it wasn't until like I really started getting tired of death metal, and I was like, what else am I going to do? I listened to all different genres of metal, and black metal was the one that I didn't, because I was just, that's kind of what I thought about it. I'm like, these guys are just, grabbing headlines. I never bothered to check out the music, and but because of boredom, really was when I was like, well, I'm going to check out some black metal. I'm just going to see. And I think it was like Watain was like the first band I listened to, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I was like, it's I said, but if I'm going to listen to black metal, I'm going to go to the guys who originated it, and I just went to those Mayhem, Burzum, Dark Throne, Emperor, a little bit of Immortal, but mainly those four, and then I don't know what, something happened and it clicked, and I didn't care anymore about the stories and all that. And it was actually then that I kind of dug deeper, as I got more into the music first and then read more into the stories later, which is kind of backwards, I think, for people my age and into black metal. So yeah, I really wanted to understand the music. And of course, like the stories, and the darkness gave it a little bit more, to your point, ideological sincerity. Like, I'm like, well, these guys really did some of this shit. Not all of them, but some of them. And of course, that makes it like, especially in like Varg's case, I was like, wow, I'm really listening to the mind of like a really sick dude. This is what a person like that, these are the sounds that come out of a person like that. So it was intriguing for that reason, just the same as I guess, some people listen to, Charles Manson's acoustic jail rock that he did. I know the guy from Integrity was friends with him and helped him put that stuff out or whatever. But I think it's the same sort of like appeal, like you want to know like what kind of music comes out of a mind like that. But for me, it was initially, that part of it was a turnoff. But ultimately, my boredom of everything else, like, had me open the door to black metal. And then I sort of got like the mystery and all that and the intrigue. But but yeah, it was more or less really the music first, and then the stories, got more interesting to me. But regardless, once I let the devil in, black metal became my favorite genre, and to this day I'm back where death metal is right back up there again. They're kind of tied, you know what I mean? Maybe even death metal a little more, because I just really can't seem to get enough of immolation over the last few years. but yeah, but yeah, once I open the door to Norway and all the other nations, that do this very well. Yeah, it really kind of took over, because I wanted that journey into darkness. I wanted to really feel taken away, and I still to this day believe that out of all the subgenres of metal, that in terms of like a real journey, I like taking you out of your own mental state and going like an astral flotation device, black metal,
water wings, astral water wings.
Astral water wings. Black metal is the way to do it. So.
Keep on swimming. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, I mean, the black metal, this stuff is world building for sure. And it, for me early on, I was captivated by what I was reading in the metal press. And my first two black metal releases I ever bought, the second wave, I mean, obviously it was Bathory, Venom, Hellhammer, Samael, you're wearing a Samael shirt. I mean, I love that shit. But this was, I kind of fell into the interest of wanting to hear what, these guys were doing. So I bought in the same day through Century Media Distro. I got De Mysterious Dom Satanas and the Emperor and Slave Split. I was kind of blown away by both of them, to be honest. I like, wow, this is, if it wasn't for the criminal stuff, this still would have got out on its own, maybe, even bad press is good press sometimes. So, I mean, it certainly didn't hurt to have, some negative things happening to propel you to the front of the, the press circuit. But, last week I watched, I can't remember the name. It's like a super long, week-long Norwegian black metal documentary that's on YouTube. I cannot remember the name of it. I should have wrote it down. It's all Norwegian. It's subtitled, interviewing all the people from back then that were in the scene. And here's a bunch of kids. They're kids, all right, doing juvenile things. And they were kind of charmed by a charismatic cult leader. I mean, Euronymous kind of fell into this role. And even though the guys that he surrounded himself with knew shit wasn't right, they still clung to it. And, you watch the documentary, they talk about it, and they know it's sad, things that happened and things that they did. But on the same token, there's like they kind of wear it as a badge of pride, which is also a little weird. I mean, it was just a very interesting documentary. I mean, we could go into this forever, but it just it seems unfortunate that these kids fell into doing some shit that probably wasn't good, and not all of them did it, but still the people that were involved. I mean, the Black Circle was only a small group of people initially, but all the hangers on, just by hanging out and being in that environment, it's kind of like the thumbs up, seal of approval. I'm here. What you did was really awful, but I'm still, I still think your band's cool and you're cool. I mean, it's kind of like like the art and not the artist type of thing. It was like the early instance of that. But I don't know that whether, good or bad, it was part of the marketing plan that seeped out and got this genre to be what it is, what it was then. It isn't that really much so anymore, but, other than bands like Tolka, I mean, they're not doing any criminal activities, but they're still flying the flag of traditional Norwegian black metal. I mean, they're one of the few in that area that still sound like the early 90s to me. But yeah, anyway, does anybody else want to jump in on this before we go to the next topic? Anything?
I think we're good. I think we're
okay.
good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's get back to
Yeah. Let's discuss the musicality and composition of Again Shall Be. We'll start with you, Kellen.
I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know the comments are all lit up about people who are not down with the pacing of this record, but
I love it.
I mean, there's so much black metal. I mean, I actually spent a few listens just trying to find a blast beat on this record, just to see if it actually happens. And
I
I
think
don't
an unholy congregation has got like a more upper paced. Maybe not. Let me think here.
I want to say
Yes.
there's like the fourth track and an oath sworn in. I don't know how to pronounce that. Bjorgfin. Yeah.
Bjorgfin, yeah.
That one I think is a little bit faster to start off with, but if the chat knows, let me know if there's a song on this that has a blast beat. But
Yeah, I don't think it ever actually does. It gets there almost, and they're like,
right.
nah. And I love that about it.
Right. But they just understand if you have an incredible riff, there is no need to burn through it, and you can just ride it. And this album does that the entire way, and it has an incredible amount of personality as a consequence. It makes it distinct and different, and I love this kind of black metal that is not in a hurry to get anywhere. They found a great sort of pocket, and they just hold on to that riff. They do not exhaust it, because there's a lot to enjoy if you hold on to it and kind of let it expand on itself. And you look at the other albums. I mean, there's a lot of, especially even debut records from Norway that come out in '94, and I think this sounds distinct relative to their peers. It's a killer, in terms of the way they decided to write this record. They held on to a sense of identity that probably, I don't know if internally there was any pressure for them to be like anyone else, but what makes this era probably so special is how distinctive all these bands sound. And Hades, prior to, this is before Turnus, and that's the closest thing that comes to mind for me, is they nailed this sound early on, and great songwriting. The melodies kind of sit at the forefront, and then like the black metal sort of production and distortion just sort of ripple to the sides of it. So you get this guiding kind of melodic progression through the entire record. But to your point, it doesn't sound folky. It's an aggressive black metal record.
Yep.
Throughout. And man, I couldn't get enough of it. So I love this style of black metal. I don't hear it enough. And songwriting, song structure. There's like more subtle elements in terms of keys, sung vocals. We'll get into my favorite tracks. Acoustic guitars that kind of come in later on, but just the bare bones of this band are really patient, well-constructed riffs that are played at a slower pace to perfection, by musicians who stood out to their peers back in '94.
Right on. And Ben, I guess I don't get the Paradise Lost connection there. I mean, I was a big, Lost Paradise and Gothic fan, and that never really occurred to me. I'll listen to it again and think about that, but I don't know what you guys think about the Paradise Lost connection. I don't know if I hear it, but
I mean, I can understand the doomier pacing to this record, but it's still a black metal record to me. Like,
yeah,
where I don't have to make that kind of, I can see where Ben's coming from, but I could, at the same time, I never once think this is anything other than like an aggressive black metal record.
Right on.
Despite its slow pacing.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think, Jim, on the musicality and composition?
These guys obviously know what they're doing. They were right there, where it all, they were ground zero, where it all began. So it'd almost be a surprise if they sucked instead of the other way around. But no, everything fits, everything's right. And yeah, like I said, I do think, Pagan Triumph may not have been placed well, in terms of like being a little, it gave you what you were going to expect from the record, like right up front. but it didn't give you enough of like, song structure, I think vocally, to give that energy that came really hard and strong in Hecate and in the songs afterwards.
It was about 4 measures too long.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm kind of ready for this to go because I know what's coming. There's a lot of good stuff. But aside from that, again, drums, slow, great choice. Everybody else is, let's see how fast we can go for the most part, except, I guess maybe Burzum. But played slow, but with cool cymbals. And, I know it sounds weird, but just next time you listen to this record, just pay attention to the cymbals for the first few songs. And you'll see like Remy's making some really cool choices that add a lot of color, to the riffs, that they kind of help the riffs shine and push them up a little bit. Yep. And but my favorite thing in terms of musicality is I alluded to it earlier. It's the distorted bass, man. It's so good, dude.
So triumphant.
It is. It's way up in the mix, and it's just like he's just high up on the frets, and it just cuts through.
It's playing cool melodies on the bass, and that's like the standout part. It's like the hook of the song. It's really cool idea.
Exactly. Yeah. And those melodic bass lines, man, I think elevate the riffs, because the riffs are pretty clear Viking battery worship. It's all the way. And it almost got to the point where it was a little too much for me on my first couple of listens. Back again, since it's been a long time, but the distorted bass was always there to like tweak it and help Hades make it their own sound, whether it was just plodding along or he's riding up there like right up high on the fretboard and pushing through the mix. It added that color, and that was consistent. And again, only the guys that watching this and doing the show understand or appreciate a really good scream black metal vocal, and to me this is one of the best, dude. It's so just like it's soul shattering. I feel like there's a lot of emotion coming through, and that's what I like. I when I listen to black metal, like I want that person to really feel it, you know what I mean, to sound tortured, and that's the way the vocals sound to me on this record throughout, all the way, and that gives it for me like a level of power. So, yeah, I think the musicality, it's understated. We're not listening to Gorguts here or anything, but that's okay. That's not what this is for. This is your magic carpet ride into hell. You know what I mean? And it's perfect for that.
Right on. And I agree with both of you guys say on this. And I just can't, the patience of the album, if you're willing to sit and be bombarded by not a lot of dynamics as far as tempo changes, but the riffs, I mean, every single riff on this album, I was trying to, we do later on, we talk about favorites and least favorites. I really don't have a least favorite on here. And it's just because all the songs are so well constructed. The riffs, for being just plodding straight ahead, patient black metal, there's so much room for those riffs to really pull on a memorable, triumphant feel. And like Jim mentioned, it's hurled at you even more so by that distorted bass that sits right on the top. And he plays up on the higher notes, and it really allows these bass harmonies to come in and really add to these songs. It really, you got super memorable riff behind it, this harmony over the top, which is typically in black metal done by a second guitar player or, a vocal line or a synth line. The bass is doing it. And that kind of sets them apart from the rest. And you look at what came out in 94. Let's see, Norway, we got In the Night Side Eclipse, De Mysterious Nam Satanas, Hvislus et Taros, Transylvanian Hunger, Pentagram by Gorgoroth, Dark Medieval Times by Satyricon, Frost by Enslaved, For All Tid, Demu Borger. I mean, it goes on and on and on. All the big ones in the scene are putting out, influential albums at this point. Some of which are on their second and third. And obviously there was a closeness with Varg Vikernes and Burzum on this because they're both from Bergen, and, Jorn or whatever his name was friends with the guy, so but the composition on this is so well done. And you're talking about, we mentioned, or we're going to compare it to other albums that came out in 94. All the bands I mentioned, there's a common theme, a common thread, but each band has its own sound, and Hades is no exception to this rule. I think these guys really kind of cornered the market on that. They took what Korthon laid down and they just made it more black metal. You got the Viking sound. At this point in the Viking era of Bathory, Korthon has moved away from that harsh black metal aesthetic, but Hades took that harsh black metal aesthetic and adapted it to the Viking, flow and movement. And like you're sitting in a boat, heading towards English shores, and it's fucking cool, man. It's totally unique. And for people that just kind of give up on it and it's too boring, you really need to sit and listen to the riffs and give it a chance because those riffs will grab you. They're memorable enough to grab you on there. Well, the production. What do you guys think of the production? Jim, let's start off with you. Production.
I wouldn't change a thing.
No, nothing.
I really wouldn't. The production of this record is a large part of what makes it what it is. You said it earlier. I love the way you put it, Marty. You said this is raw black metal, but also like mystical and it's almost classical in this presentation. With some of it's like played simply, but still the arrangements are very like large and big and. Yep. And warlike, so it gives you that vibe, without being like what Vikings actually played. You feel like Kellen was saying, you feel like a Viking listening to it, and and that is a large, I think, due in large part to the production, not letting things get so clean and slick or whatever, where it sucks that energy and that life right out of it. It's the rawness of the delivery of this like Viking metal, that makes it what it is, and also lends it, it lends it more power, because there's a lot of debate, even nowadays, where people are like, do they really mean to make it sound this shitty, or do they just did not have the money, or I don't care about like what was really going on. All I care about is the end product, and I think that like. An understated production like this and a lot of albums in the 90s is what adds to their darkness and their power and their atmosphere. It's a much overused word, but the fact of the matter is here, this album is atmosphere. This is an album you define atmosphere with an album like Again Shall Be. You know what I mean? They're not trying to bash you over the head. They are trying to, they're taking your coins, man, and you're about to cross the river Styx. That's what's happening on this record. And if the production were anything more than what it was, it would take you out of that. It would turn from being like a kind of a mystical fog that you're journeying through into something that's abrupt and in your face, or so clean that it hurts your ears because it feels like fucking ivory soap or something. You don't want that with this kind of music. So yeah, production, I think absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change a thing on it. I know that's not helpful criticism.
No, it's I would agree with you on that for sure. Kellen, what do you think?
Yeah, so I don't agree. I will say this, and from someone who doesn't own the original release and was streaming it this past week, there is a remaster version of this that is in wide circulation. Yeah. And I don't love that. I don't love that version as much. So to that being said,
you may pay a lot to find the Full Moon Productions press. I'm sorry. This might be tough.
I know. I've spent this past week looking, and I was like, I'm going to bite the bullet here. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of drive home what Jim had already said, it is this perfect balance where I don't get that like Norwegian pure frozen environment here. There's enough sort of like power and force, these like soaring sort of this scale to this record, to the, whether you want to talk about it being primarily a bass addition to the band, or if it is just the riffs they're writing, like the size and weight of this record that is gathered by, the slower riffs are a little bit distinct comparison to a lot of the sort of traditional Norwegian sounds. Like Burzum, for example, is very much more of an ambient listen to me, and it is much colder. Dark Throne, I feel the same way. Like this, by comparison, has a different kind of, it's like a brawnier, stronger, more forceful kind of sound to it. And the production completely amplifies that, while at the same time not try to overcompensate for something that's not there. So I do want to say that the remaster version felt like certain parts of the mix were amplified. Like the drum kit, it felt a bit more sibilant for me because they had tried to turn like the hi-hat and the cymbals up more. I felt like the bass is perfect on the original mix. You can hear it to a certain degree and a clearer, it's separated from the guitars a bit more on the remaster. But I don't necessarily need to hear virtuoso bass playing in my black metal. I need to hear it sort of as an addition to the guitars, and it's in the original mix is clear enough. So I wouldn't change anything from the original mix. It's great production and completely, drives home the sound of this band to the next level. Like it only heightens the experience of Again Shall Be.
There's a moment, I can't remember which song it is. I think he says "Hail the Night Sky" like over and over again, like he's screaming like a crazy person. I see like a guy at the edge of a gorge, like a moonlit gorge, like screaming into the night, this "Hail the Night Sky" thing. And that's kind of the feeling, there's power and push to this, but like I said, that Pitten sound, it gives it atmosphere. There's like a lot of room for all these instruments to breathe, and it's not as oppressive as Dark Throne or overwhelming as Emperor, or it's just a powerful force and with a lot of ambience, which is really cool. And then like I said, those big that kettle drum sound and the rolls when he hits the lower, those like the floor toms and stuff, they just boom, and it's perfect. I really wouldn't, and I guess I never listened to the remaster of it. I just have this, and I've been listening to it in the car and in the shop, and it sounds great, man. It sounds like a Pitten production, but it doesn't sound like everybody else, which is completely great. I wouldn't change a thing, and I'm gonna have to check out the remaster of that and hear how they fiddled with it, because I guess I haven't done that yet. Is it that way on Spotify?
But it's on. So what happened was when I went down to sit and listen to this for like the third time, I committed, and I plugged it in my headphones into my system here, and I wanted to blare this super loud without pissing the whole neighborhood off. So, but what I had to do is on my tone controls for the remaster, I had to turn the treble down just because the drum became so sibilant; it was like piercing through. And when I found the original mix, I could turn it up as loud as I wanted and let it, just absolutely burn into my head, because it's measured correctly. And I understand there's probably less clarity there. I think the remaster was like in 2010. I could be off on the dates there, but
okay.
I don't know if Hammerheart got a hold of it, and
someone put it out on vinyl at some point with the Alone Walking demo tagged on the second LP. My buddy Jack has. I've always wanted it, but I don't want to spend the money that they want for it. It's too much. I'm assuming that's the remaster there. I'm sure it's been fixed.
Because I want this on vinyl, but I'm waiting for the.
I don't think there's an OG pressing on vinyl. I know Full Moon Productions put out the second one on vinyl, but I don't think they did the first one that I'm aware of. I could be wrong.
Okay, when you find it, let me know, because that'll be a quick purchase for me. But
yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest thing I noticed is just I could not, crank into the remaster and enjoy it in the same way. And I get they're trying to look for greater clarity, but I think it comes as a consequence instead of embracing a part of black metal production that is, you don't need that kind of precision. I'm looking for, a more holistic approach to what the band has to offer.
And Captain K, I mean, it's a good point, and Kellen's point too, that when you reissue something, I think it is alluring for companies to want to remaster it so you can tag one more thing. Oh, this sounds different than the original. And it's like more of a sales point, even though if you're like us, I want to hear it the way it was meant to be heard. You know, when like they reissued all the Merciful Fate stuff. I think they did it from the original tapes, so I don't know how bad they messed it up, but that early Merciful Fate stuff, you can hear the room it was recorded in. Why would you mess with that? Why would you fuck up something that's already perfect and has been perfect for decades? You know, I don't get it. Anyway, let's talk about least favorite songs. Jim.
Well, the Spirit of an Ancient Past, man. It's so awesome, man. You know, the keyboard work is awesome on there. There's a really subtle melody line. The guitar kind of repeats about 2 minutes in. They kind of do it over and over, and it's very, very mournful and very, very clean. Not over the top. It's all about feel. It's a really highlight of the record for me, and of course it's followed directly by a really badass distorted bass break. So I love that song. And you had mentioned this earlier when he's screaming "Burning Midnight Skies."
Oh, is that what he's saying? Burning. I thought he said "Hail the Night Sky," but "Burning Midnight Sky." Yeah.
I looked it up because I wasn't exactly sure. Yeah. But "Ecstasy of an Astral Journey," like that. That's one of my favorite moments on the whole record. It's like you said. I mean, he's just, man, his vocals there are just, goosebump inducing.
On fire. Sounds like he's on fire.
Yeah, dude. I mean, 100%. My least favorite is, I've already mentioned it, is Pagan Triumph, the very first thing on the record. So to all y'all who haven't heard this, get past the first track. It's not, it's a little too long. And it's not really a song.
It's cool. Intro. I like it. I like how it builds, but it goes too long. I would agree.
Yeah, instead of it's just under 4 minutes, it should have been like 1.5. You know what I mean? And then get right to the record. But conversely, the outro, which is In the Moonless Sky, on keyboards, it's super moody. It's very affecting. And where anybody who's watched me on this show has heard me say, like, I can't stand when a band goes out with a slow song. This album is perfect for going out with this slow ambient synth. It's like you're going back into the dream world. And to your point, Kellen, instead of like freezing in the tundra, you're bleeding out on the shore. That's what I think of when I hear In the Moonless Sky. It's a perfect way to end this album, and even though it's just all synths, it makes me want to start the record back over again. And and what can you say about that? I mean, that's what you want, right? I mean,
yep.
So. Yeah, and of course the title track, Again Shall Be is a title track for a reason. It's the one that I feel like has that march. There's a soldiery kind of vibe going on there, but definitely Spirit of an Ancient Past, the screams at Ecstasy of Astral Journey. So those are mine highlights.
How about you, Kellen? Oh, I forgot to highlight you, Jim. Sorry, Kellen. There you go. Zoning out. Not that it matters.
Astral Journey, for the same part that you mentioned, that vocal sort of everything empties out and takes center stage, because you kind of like the whole song sort of pushes along, and then he finally arrives at this moment, and he sort of plants his flag down and announces to the astral plane, whatever. But the other one that I really, really liked, It Comes Later. And it kind of, as much as I got into the vibe of this record, Glorious Again, The Northland Shall Become, opens with an acoustic guitar. And a lot of the other songs, when they had sort of, tertiary instruments or influences would come in, they would come after the song had begun and just sort of implemented midway through. Mm-hmm. This starts with the acoustic. The riff launches in, and then it holds its place throughout the entire song. And that just, I love that piece. Like, they never let go of it. It sort of is a guiding sort of, addition to the entire length of the record, or song, I should say. But it like woke me back up. I completely just like re-engaged with the record. I was kind of getting in this like perfect little vibe. It gets quiet. The acoustic guitar comes in. On And So the Night Became, one of my favorite songs is Warrior of the Crescent Moon, and it opens with that beautiful acoustic guitar.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of had one of those moments like, holy shit, like just completely like got me out of my seat. And that's at track 8, I believe. It comes like on the back end of the record.
That's
so
Unholy Congregation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Which one are we talking about?
Glorious Again, the Northland Shall Become.
Well, that's 7. You're close.
Okay. But it's in the back half of the record. So like I completely just got this whole sense of energy, and I got a couple of songs left, and it to the point where by the time the ambient passage arrives, I'm like, I'm ready for another listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's
awesome.
I don't have a bad song here. Like every single track serves as like a mission statement for what this band is, and or at least on this album. And yeah, it's absolutely a vibe. I don't mind the slow beginning and the ambient sort of synth end, just because I'm not in a rush to get anywhere when I listen to this record.
Yeah,
I'm just along for sort of like, going over the waves as I ride along with this album. So no bad songs. There's maybe some highlight moments, but it's a record that I would put on and let spin and just sort of enjoy the scope of the journey, as opposed to looking for sort of singular moments.
Right on. Well, for me, Pagan Triumph, Jim doesn't like it, but it is a little long, but I find it very cinematic. Though it's a few measures too long, I think it really sells well what's coming. I think it's got a lot of those elements right there up front in more of a cinematic scope. It's like, okay, you're going to have a very mid-paced, powerful album. And then when Hecate, Queen of Hades hits, Gianto's vocals come in. You're just like, holy shit. The vocals are just scathing right out front, very attacking. Really sells that track right on, and you're in for a great experience. And his distorted, triumphant bass tone. Holy shit. The Spirit of an Ancient Past. I love that nasty creeping bass line. They just sound demonic in there. There's just a weird crawl to that bass riff. It's so cool. Sells the track perfectly. Unholy Congregation, that's one of the songs that was on the demo. It's a great song. I think it's probably one of the most powerful and memorable songs for, just more straight up black metal. But just these just really triumphant. There's just shit in each one of these songs. It just makes you grit your teeth and pump, clench your fists. And the whole album is one after another of this. And did you guys listen to any of the other stuff? Did you listen to the second one?
Is that a question for me?
Well, to both of you, but we'll start with you, Kellen. I was looking at you. You can't tell I was looking at you, but did you listen to the second one?
I haven't, because I want, as I've heard so much about it, but I
so
want to
fucking
go.
Good.
I want to go in and not have listen to 1 or 2 songs, get excited, and then have to be pulled away. Like I want to sit down and with a committed sense of like, man, if I enjoyed that one, the first one so much, everyone is building up the second one for me. I don't want to get a half-hearted attempt.
Yeah.
I spin it. So
it's very much like the first one. It builds on it a little bit. I think it's really good. What did you think of it, Jim?
It's a great segue from Again Shall Be. I love the production on it. It's a little bit more mid-rangey, a little bit tighter, but not clean. You know what I mean? So it's good just in a different way. And no, it's you had a great way to explain it. They took the formula and they just added some more onto it, which is awesome because the formula was great. We didn't want them going on a left turn, doing something completely different. So it's that same ground that made Again Shall Be such a great record. They just took that and gave you more of it and just gave it with a slightly different tone. You know what I mean? And so yeah, they're a great compliment to one another. And it is an excellent record, and the cover is really cool too.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
All right, Kellen, you're up. Let's do judgment, final thoughts. I think we all know where we stand on this one.
Man, I knew I was gonna enjoy it, but yeah, it's an absolute success, classic record, must buy, must own. Um,
Sadly
and
overlooked. No one really talks about this record. They really
yeah,
don't.
I mean, it's got buried, right, and a lot by a lot of.
It's true.
It's not like it's a small year in the history of black metal. But that precedes, like, a lot of bands that played in this sort of um, style. So I don't know if that's the reason it got buried, but man, I'm so happy I got a chance to sit down and listen to it this week, and yeah, it's a must own, must listen, classic record. I can't say enough good things about it, and I'm definitely purchasing this one.
Right on, Jim.
I had a lot of gratitude when you exposed me to this record back in 2012, and I have a lot of gratitude for you putting it back on my radar now, Marty. It's it's
Try
really
to help.
Yeah, man. It's really great stuff, and I just want to keep digging into their discography. I haven't even made it to the third album, which is definitely a lot weirder. Millennium Nocturne is strange.
They start to kind of lose the potency, I think, in the riffs. I still like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Pulse of Decay's got some weird shit on it, and I still like it, but it's certainly not the first two albums in the demo. It just isn't.
Right. Yeah, the first two are definitely the better choices. But I can kind of see myself, after really giving some more time to Again Shall Be and the Dawn of the Dying Sun, I could see myself giving the other stuff a chance. But because what these guys got, their chemistry, Remy and the other guy whose name we can't pronounce, it's legitimate, it's powerful, and it's strong, and I'll be ready for the weird stuff. But right now I'm just, Again Shall Be and the second record are more than enough for me. I think they're going to carry for a long time. So yeah, anybody out here who hasn't checked it out, obviously, we're nigh gushing on this record, and so I think it's going to be, it's a great listen. It's been raining here all day long, and listening to this while it's fucking raining outside and thundering, and it couldn't get any better. Like, so
Sweet.
yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, for me, it's clear I love it. Obviously, I picked it, and I guess I've been kind of wondering this whole week, why is this kind of overlooked? I mean, yeah, granted, 94, there was a lot of stuff piled on for, influential albums, amazing black metal albums. I think part of it is Hades themselves. I mean, they've been at it for a long time. They're still active. They've done a split with Druk, and they've done another split with someone else. I can't remember who, and it's okay. They're okay. They have not been a prolific band. So that works against them. And their sound is it's evolving, maybe not as essential. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I really need to revisit a couple of these records and really to sum up my thoughts. But, their lack of productivity might have been a detriment to their growth. And it could also deal with people's attention spans. I mean, I love doom metal, but I don't listen to a lot of doom metal because I'm just never in that mindset for it. And I just think that people don't take the time to sit with something this expansive, this long, this, kind of even keel as far as tempo. And if you're not, mixing it up a lot and doing a lot of tricks and stuff by song 3, I think a lot of people's attention drifts. But for me, it's the type of album that's perfectly structured that way due to the riffs. The riffs are so good. I mean, the drum performance is very well considered. I mean, everything about this, the placement of the keyboards, these mystical keyboards that come in, it's very tasty. The way their songwriting is very tasty early on. The demo and the first 2 full lengths, they sound very inspired, and they check all the boxes for me. And I just think it's really worth, if you're kind of on the fence about it, definitely revisit it. Especially if you like this style of black metal. I mean, for the people out there that are like, I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get in it. Fair enough. To each their own. But I don't know. It's one of those albums I think you need to spend some time with. You can't just listen to it once or twice and be like, especially if you're not in the mood for something like this. But yeah, so Against Shall Be finally gave it its due, I think. And guys, thank you for this. But next week, the album club, it's Kellen's pick. What will he pick?
All right. Next week we are listening to
Awesome. That's a great
Battle
band.
Roar,
Yeah.
Age of Chaos, 2005.
Good stuff.
Nice.
Where are they from? They're very epic metal.
Yeah. Greek band.
Okay. Is that album have Mark Shelton on, or is that the first one I'm thinking
Well,
of?
you're going to have to listen to the record, Marty. I'm not just going to give it to you. But yeah, Mark Shelton's on it.
Okay, cool. Age of Chaos. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Good choice. And next week will be a little different because Jim will actually be here in Traverse City, probably sitting at that table right next to me, or sharing the same screen. We don't know. We'll see how the tech issues work out. If they don't work out, we'll be passing the mic back and forth. But yeah, it'll be a good one. But until then, thank you, everybody. Program notes. Friday, Melanie from Melanie Loves Death Metal will be rejoining us. And I think we're going to be talking about favorite new releases from 2022 that we've picked up. So that'll be an easy, fun one. Something just to chill out and talk about some new stuff, that'll be good. It'll be good to have Melanie back. She's been busy and sick and or busy. So tune in for that. And there's lots of other material on the lots of other show times on the channel for you guys to check out. Had a great show last week with Mike Seatown and lots of stuff. If you're bored, we got you covered. But check out Killing for Company YouTube channel, link in the description. Check out Eihwaz Recordings, link in the description. Go buy yourself some damn tapes and some cool stuff. A very diverse roster on the Eihwaz camp for sure. And he's got shit to move, so buy some stuff. But guys, again, always a pleasure. Always look forward to this every week with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Until next week, see you all later for the album club, Battle Roar, Age of Chaos. Cheers.